Okay, so we're going to take a look at how to make a text more accessible for all our students. The first thing that I like to do is always some pre-reading. That's really a time to help build vocabulary and allow the students to make some connections with their home language or prior experience. I like to always predict the main idea by looking at the title of the text. In this case, I really need to think what words do they need to understand? And really, it's most of them in this case. So I'm going to start with music. Music is a cognate. It should look similar to a lot of your students that speak those Romance languages. Next, I'm going to look at the word airport. Airport is also a cognate. However, I need to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of my students may have never been in an airport, so we might have to have some discussion around that. The word great is also important to context. However, this is not a cognate, and it's probably a word my students don't know. I might have to have them look it up in a dictionary, talk with a partner, or do some actions to really get them to understand that. Once we've predicted the main idea, I'm going to show them some pictures of an airport, talk about what that might be like to be at an airport, and might find a video as well to show them some lead-in information. Lastly, I'm going to find an excerpt from the text to really build on background knowledge. In this case, we're going to pick apart that excerpt, really figure out what we think it means, maybe translate it, talk about it to really get the information we need to begin reading. Now I'm going to begin reading the text. This is the time where the students really get to interact with it. We're going to want our students to number the paragraphs or lines of the text, and really we're going to read a few times through with different purposes. The first time we're going to read, I'm going to have the students look over the article and underline words that they recognize. This can either be vocab we've already done or cognates. When we're done with that, I might have them share with a partner, list the words on a board, really to kind of get the gist and show them that even though it's a big piece of text, there's a lot of stuff they already know within the text. I'm going to then read it for a second time. In this case, I'm going to ask them a question. The question is, who is Bontempi? They're going to look within their text and circle key evidence about Bontempi to be able to tell me who this person is. I might have them share with a partner. We might do some sort of share out loud to figure out the evidence that they found. I would then read a third time. This time I would pose another question. Do any other airports offer entertainment? In this case, they're going to find and highlight this information. All three reads is really teaching my students to look for evidence within the text. It's chunking up the information so they're not so overwhelmed with reading it all at once, and it's making it accessible for all students. After I'm done with these three reads in the pre-reading, I should have a pretty good feel for how well my students understand the text. This whole process might have taken a few days in reality by the time you do pre-reading, 1, 2, 3 different reads. You might be looking at a couple days, but now we have a really good understanding of the information and we can begin extending beyond. This would be a time to do a written response or a language. In this case, the text is about airports and how they represent the culture of a city. So this would offer some great conversation as far as what types of activities could an airport in your city have to represent your culture. As far as extending beyond the text, you'll see here there's a question. Traveling can be stressful and airports are very busy. How can entertainment help travelers? This is a really complex question that really asks the students to dig a little deeper into the idea behind the entertainment in the airport, that it's not just for fun, it's also really to represent a city. One way in which you could do this writing extension is through the use of a word bank. Down below, you'll see I have a word bank with lots of different words that can help them formulate their answers. And here I have some sentence frames to help them. It's not to say that every student has to use every single sentence frame. It's just there to help give them ideas to spur their thinking. So really, throughout this whole text, I've done a whole bunch of steps to make it accessible for my students. I've built on their background knowledge so I can be sure that every student in my room has the same context. We've marked up the text, used the words that we know to help formulate meaning. We're not worried about the words that we don't know. And finally, we've extended on by asking some questions. All of these steps are really going to help ensure that your students have a deeper meaning for text and can really be prepared for when they're faced with larger pieces of text on the FSAs or other types of assessments you might do in your class.